See this guy here? That is Jeff Bezos. You may recognize him from his cowboy cosplaying on the cover of Vogue, or his cowboy cosplaying in space, or from him being one of the wealthiest human beings alive right now. But here's something that you might not know about him. Crazy enough, Jeff Bezos pays less in federal income taxes than a public school teacher. And he's not the only ultra-wealthy person who pays a smaller tax rate than everyday people. ProPublica created this great chart highlighting the true tax rate that a few famous billionaires, from Warren Buffett to Elon Musk, paid between 2014 and 2018. And while yes, these folks are paying taxes, if you compare their total taxes paid against their total income reported, it makes for a true tax rate that goes as low as 0.10% for Warren Buffett. Some of you might think,
well, that's because a lot of that wealth is coming from things like stock appreciation,
which we don't tax unless the stocks are sold. Correct. But the tricky workaround that many of these ultra-wealthy folks do is a strategy known as buy, borrow, die. Buy is the assets that these ultra-wealthy have, like Elon's Tesla stocks that make up billions of his net worth and annual income. Borrow is taking out loans against those stocks, which means that you get access to billions of dollars like a normal income, but without ever having to pay a cent on taxes. It's a total loophole. And then of course you have die. The tax rules also make it so that the ultra wealthy can pass their assets to their heirs upon death without any tax liability. This is all due to something called the step up in basis rule. I wanted to explain all of that before we dive into this because I think it's important to see how the ultra wealthy already can get away with preventing high taxes. And as we'll talk about more after the Trump tax law was passed, these ultra wealthy pay even fewer taxes. And you might be thinking,
how is any of this fair?
My argument is that it's not, and it's holding back our ability to improve everyday people's finances because of these flawed tax laws that we have in place. Tax laws, by the way, might just be one of the most boring phrases out there, but as boring as they seem, tax laws are so important because they don't just affect how we pay our taxes every April, but also how much money we have available for programs that make our country thrive, from building roads and bridges to affordable quality healthcare to investing in better schools and childcare options. You know, the kind of stuff that benefits everyone. Because even though I don't have children and I don't use healthcare very often, I want to live in a country that has educated and healthy people. My life is way better if that is the case. Anyways, I want to talk about one specific tax law in this video, and that is the Republican tax law passed in 2017, and ideally explain why I think it kind of sucks. Because see, the law was passed in 2017, but this year in 2025, a portion of it expires, and that is a huge deal because Congress now has the opportunity to make a fairer tax code, which would allow us to address growing income inequality and fund programs that move our country forward. But many in Congress, namely Republicans, want to extend the law and give the very rich even more tax breaks. Before we get into that though, let me actually call out what I like about the Republican tax law, also known as the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Because Trump passed it, I think it's really easy for some folks to just automatically assume that everything about the tax law is awful. And while there are certainly some really shady pieces of it that give major tax breaks to Trump's rich friends, there are also some gems in there that I think we can reuse in future tax policy. One of these is the increase in standard deduction. Basically, if you have ever done your taxes before, you know that you are entitled to a certain amount back because of qualified expenses, like donations or small business expenses. However, listing each of those expenses can be super tedious. It's a lot of tracking, it's a lot of gathering receipts. So by raising the standard deduction, it makes it a little bit faster and more simple to get your taxes done. I think that is a huge win. The 2017 tax law also increased child tax credits for families, which I love to see. I want more of that kind of stuff in the US because I think that's how we better support families and make sure that our country thrives overall. And so those things, they're great, no doubt. And like I said, if I were in charge, I would love to see those pieces kept for future tax policy. But the thing is, those good policies, I don't think they have to be paired with what I see as more harmful and bad policies that the Republican tax policy promotes. Those policies include major tax breaks toward the ultra wealthy, which I think needs changing this year when the Republican tax policy expires. And I am not alone in thinking that our current tax codes favoring of the ultra wealthy, it's pretty messed up. Mark Cuban of Shark Tank and Mavs fame is just one of the billionaires who regularly talks about how he thinks he should be paying more in taxes.
Question I get asked a lot is, should billionaires pay more in taxes? Yeah, we should pay more in taxes. I would not be in this position without this country because nothing happens That's great, whether it's healthcare, teachers, roads, you name it, without people paying their taxes. One of the most patriotic things that you can do when you're wealthy is pay your mother taxes.
And he is not the only one. Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are just a couple other famous billionaires who say the same, with Buffett saying, quote, "The wealthy are definitely undertaxed relative to the general population."
If I was in charge of the tax system, I would have paid a lot more in taxes. I'd have about a third as much money as I have.
And while I am not a billionaire by any means, I definitely agree. The Republican tax law gave record-breaking tax breaks to the wealthiest individuals and the biggest corporations. As this Center on Budget and Policy Priorities headline puts it, quote, "The 2017 tax law was skewed to the rich, expensive, and failed to deliver on its promises." So what were those promises? We were told that the policy would pay for itself and create more wealth from the top down. But the pay for itself part hasn't really seemed to happen, with Maya McGinnis, president of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, saying, quote, "It was unbelievable at the time, and it's proven to be absolutely untrue. The tax cuts were never going to, and have not, come anywhere close to paying for themselves." As for that second part about the policy creating more wealth from the top down, also known as trickle-down economics, that also hasn't happened. I actually had a chance to talk with Elizabeth Warren, who is a Massachusetts senator and a former Harvard professor, on this exact topic. And here is what she explained.
There's a ton of data now that shows that what happens when the people at the top don't have to pay taxes is they get richer and everybody else gets poorer. And our government can no longer provide the goods and the services. There are people who like it that way, and they're going to be involved in this tax fight.
I also spoke to Minnesota Senator Tina Smith, who described how the tax cuts for the ultra-wealthy and corporations have impacted the middle class.
When the Republicans made these big reforms to tax policy in this country, they basically shifted the burden. They shifted the burden away from big companies and billionaires, and they shifted it on to regular folks. And what that means is that regular people have less money in their pocket. You take a big company like Amazon or Target. I'm not complaining about the companies. I'm just saying that they should be paying federal income taxes. But some years they don't pay any federal income taxes at all. That doesn't seem right or fair. And I don't think it's good for the health and well-being of everybody in this country.
Once upon a time, I actually used to think that there was something to trickle-down economics, because on the surface, it kind of sounds like it would make sense, but unfortunately, the data just does not seem to support it, which is why I have since changed my mind on the policy, and it is why I want to see a more fair tax code this year when the Republican tax law expires, because investing in the public good, whether it's better infrastructure for our cities and our roads, or more affordable health care, or better funded school systems. That is what I believe will help drive us forward and make life better for all of us. But the thing is, Trump and the Republicans in Congress now have control of all three chambers of government, and they want to extend the law, which means that billionaires and corporations will get another huge payday while everyday people struggle to afford to pay for these important public investments. Just like last time, they're going to tell us that the bill is going to trickle down to help regular people, but we have the data now. We know that that's not the truth. It's just going to make rich people richer at the expense of others. If you want to learn more about the Republican tax law and the tax fight that is coming up this year, visit unrigoуreconomy.com/unrigourtaxes. I've shared some resources down below that I've used to learn more about this, and I hope you found this interesting. I know that this is very different from my normal videos. As much as I love talking about how we can improve our money and finances on an individual level, sometimes we also have to zoom out and talk about the broader systemic ways that our finances can be improved. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.